There are growing calls for the President of the United States to step down. That has been happening for some time now, with many Americans expressing their concerns about Joe Biden's mental fitness. But after Thursday's press conference, those calls have almost certainly skyrocketed. And the latest ABC News Ipsos poll found 86% of Americans believe that Joe Biden is too old to serve another term. We'll take a look at some of the most disastrous moments from Joe Biden's unruly and chaotic press conference in just a moment. But the president addressed the cameras and reporters after a damning special counsel report found that Joe Biden didn't remember when he was vice president, and he didn't remember even within several years when his son Beau died. The report into mishandling of classified documents found that Joe Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified military and national security information, but recommended that he doesn't face charges, essentially because the prosecution would likely be unsuccessful because his memory is so bad. The report described the president as a well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. This is how Joe Biden responded.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally out.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak.
And while trying to convince not just reporters in the room, but the rest of the world that is watching him that his memory is fine, he referred to the president of Egypt as the president of Mexico.
As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate.
And as Sky News host Kieran Gilbert points out, this is not a one-off from the president.
To then come out in this context to argue the points on memory, which he'd completely ignored earlier in the day. Obviously, he was getting the feedback that this is what all the networks were picking up on and talking about, that there's this criticism around his memory retention in this report that was put out by the special prosecutor. So in rebutting that, he seemed to take issue especially with the fact that this report listed that he had trouble remembering within several years when his son Beau died. In rebutting that, though, he then seemed to forget the point that he raised about having the rosary that was given to him. He seemed to blank on whether that was given to him by a particular parish. And then to go on to then respond to the reporter question around Israel when he was perfectly capable of walking out at that point, to then go and then get the southern border mixed up with Mexico, between Israel and Gaza instead. That has huge international repercussions, that kind of language from the White House. And this is where people are saying, what are we signaling to the rest of the world here? This is the guy who has the nuclear football within his range, and he's the one that's supposed to be protecting America. And he's clearly got these just really obvious memory issues, and yelling about it isn't going to convince anyone.
Yeah, James, if that was meant to reassure people, I don't think many would feel more reassured after that performance than before it by President Biden, as Annelise and I have been discussing. Just that stuff up in itself, that President al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, he called the president of Mexico. And if it's a one-off, fine, but this is not a one-off. This is one of many, many examples, including this quite damning description by the special counsel, James.
And Sky News host James Morrow explains how damning the special report really is for the president.
To be honest with you, when the alert went out about this White House address, I thought there was every chance that he was going to say that given the findings of this and a number of other things, I am going to step back from my role and not contest the next election, much like LBJ did, by the way, in 1968. There's historical precedent for this. What we saw here tonight, though, was absolutely shocking. We saw a combative and at times confused Joe Biden. Annelise noted the failure to finish up the point about the rosary, what parish that was from. And I thought, well, maybe this is just emotion around the subject of his son, Beau. But then again, on the question of the Middle East, and then he confuses Egypt and Mexico. He's thinking, the border between Gaza and Egypt. He's thinking, the border between Texas and Mexico. You can see where his mind is just messing things up on this sort of thing. And this comes not just off the back, Kieran, of this report, which is damning. I don't care what he tries to say about the fact that they're not moving forward with charges. The reason why they're not is because they're saying he's not competent enough to be proven that he knew what he was doing. That's the point of that report. Earlier this week, he said that he met with Francois Mitterrand when he first became president. Francois Mitterrand died in 1996. He also said at a fundraiser 2 days ago that he met with Helmut Kohl when he was president, the former chancellor of West Germany. Helmut Kohl died in 1997. These are just, a few examples of these confabulations where he does not remember who is alive, who is not alive anymore, basic facts about things, and this angry, combative temper that he brought out tonight, I think has done him a world of ill with the press gallery, and with, I think, anybody who was watching tonight. This is why, by the way, the world is in so much chaos at the moment, because other leaders see this guy running the White House. If he was your relative, you'd be having serious conversations about whether he was allowed to drive or not, much less, have access to the nuclear football, Kieran.
That press conference is being described as a train wreck and an ad for Donald Trump.
What's really painful, it's not what it's not what Biden's saying. It's the silence between the words. These long gaps speak louder than any gaffe. And it's not as if the slow pace reflects some kind of thoughtfulness. It's a man searching for thoughts. He's like on the beach with a metal detector looking for a bottle cap for his collection. It's not fun. It's those long silences that just kind of hurt you. I was toggling between the Biden presser and the Putin-Tucker interview, so I can't help but compare. It's just natural. And one was like a 2-hour lecture. It was tedious and it was detailed. And the other was a tantrum. I felt like I was flipping between the History Channel and Celebrity Rehab with Gary Busey.
And this is some of the commentary from around the world.
Look, he's 81. And I have an immense respect for older people. I think most people out there watching, listening would say, you know what, something as grueling as a job like the President of the United States, probably a bit too old. But he's clearly struggling. I think he's clearly got some kind of cognitive decline. That's obvious. And what I'd say as well is you're saying about not mocking it, and I agree with that. One undignified way to go out, because he's had a career in politics for decades. He's got family. He's got kids, grandkids. This is how he's going to be remembered, especially if he has another term. He will be remembered as a laughingstock. And I don't blame him. I blame the Democratic establishment who has him up there, because frankly, if they don't run him, they don't have another candidate. Maybe Gavin Newsom, but I think frankly Trump beats him. So Biden is there because he suits certain interests and certain people who are waiting their proverbial turn to have a crack at the whip, because they don't have anyone else. Same with Kamala Harris, really, let's be honest. So I feel very sorry for him, and to answer your question bluntly, he should not be anywhere near power.
Peter?
Well, quite. It is very disturbing, and it makes you grieve to look at it. I've always found Joe Biden likable as a person, and it's no pleasure at all to watch the public decay of somebody like this. And I agree so much with Aaron about the Democratic Party's cynicism in continuing to push him forward when it plainly would be both kinder and more responsible and politically wise to ask him to step down.